Okay, so for most of this video, we're going to be looking at our S3 bucket, and we're going to specifically be looking at the permissions, the access control for this bucket. And just to kind of preview, the two areas that we're going to be spending the most time in are going to be this permissions area that has, if you scroll down, a bucket policy. They have little descriptions about each of these sections and the cores, the cross-origin resource sharing. So this is where we're going to give our app, which in my case is this S3 user. This is its ARN, its Amazon resource number that we're plugging in here. The effect is whether we're going to either allow or deny permissions to do X, Y, or Z. And then the actions that we're going to allow. So whenever you see a star, like you do right here with this get, it means that all permissions are allowed for that. So get bucket location would be included in here, get object, get whatever. So you guys had a little bit of experience using the get action. It's a request when we were doing it before with our PHP, that get ID equals whatever for your reviews, for example. But you might notice a different one right here called put. Now, you can think of put as being an acronym for post and update. It's basically like a better version of post, because it will add a folder, for example, if one doesn't currently exist, where we're trying to define one. So for example, if I'm trying to send data to a folder named cats, and that folder doesn't currently exist in my S3 bucket, if I use the put action, it will automatically make a folder for me. And it will not do that with post. It'll throw an error because that resource doesn't exist. So post is great for being more restrictive, and put is just more convenient, and we're going to use that. And then this resource is going to be the S3 bucket itself, and then all subdirectories of the S3 bucket that we're making. And that resource number is found when we edit. Actually, we can see it. It'll give us the ARN for the bucket. Okay? So that is for the individual bucket. And if you have a good and clear policy, which is in JSON format, by the way, that's why it looks the way it does. You might think of this kind of like as a dictionary or a hash map. JSON is a series of key value pairs. It's basically an array of key value pairs. And within those, you can have nested key value pairs as well. And nesting and nesting and nesting. So JSON is a really, really common format. If you do any kind of OAuth, or if you use, if you're doing data science, there's a bunch of different applications where JSON is used. It's a really, really common format, and you should eventually get comfortable with that. Don't worry about these access control lists. The cores policy is I'm going to allow access to my S3 bucket from X, Y, or Z other IP addresses or locations. I'm going to allow particular methods. You guys have some experience with post and get. I added put in here as well. Headers. This is when we actually send a request. It's going to have a particular set of information in the header, user agents, a bunch of stuff like that. You can make this as restrictive or permissive as you want. With the star, I've made it very permissive for both the allowed IP addresses right here and the allowed headers. And then this is basically like how long each of the sessions will last. So 3,000 seconds, I believe. I believe that's in seconds. Now, in the Discord section for the YouTube links, I've left a couple of resources here for you to check out. This will allow you to copy and paste some stuff. So if you go right here, if you scroll down, you must use the JSON one. The XML I've had issues with, and it doesn't work out so well, and it's really annoying. The XML is the better one. I copy and paste. I will copy and paste when I show you guys that example in just a minute. But I'm gonna copy and paste this example too. It's a singular one. You can have multiple like origins defined with different capabilities, for example. So that's a very neat thing. And then it kind of goes into what some of these components are. So anyway, you may recognize this. This is something we did with the JavaScript code, or something that I did with the JavaScript code that you guys can see in the review.php file. So this is an AJAX request. So it'll dynamically update the page as we're going through it. So anyway, a couple things to be aware of beyond the fact that you should use JSON for this. I'm going to insist that you use JSON for this formatting and do the copying and pasting stuff that I show you. Make sure that your commas are after each of these types of like key value pairs, unless there is no other, unless there is not one that follows. So for example, there's nothing after this statement right here. This is like the super key value pair for this group right here. There's no additional comma right there. So it's the same as you've had some experience with the dictionaries and hash maps in other previous languages. Now, the other thing to take stock of is your square brackets and curly brackets. So just make sure that you have the appropriate amount of them. So curly brackets are for a bunch of different components within one, and then square brackets are for elements that are all part of like one action, for example. And yeah, okay, that's good. I'm gonna go back to my S3, and I'm gonna go in here to CS230.21-S3. We're going to go in permissions. And you can right click on this, learn more, and it'll give you a little example right here. This is not too bad. I'm just going to copy and paste this. And then I'm going to go ahead and edit my bucket policy. Okay. Don't worry about the version. You can give the ID something different. This will allow us to access it in our application when we do the PHP code in just a minute. So I'm just going to make this CS230 S3 app. And I'll make the SID the same thing. The effect is going to be allow. The principal, this is where our AWS file is going to come into play from the last lab. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up right here. And I'm going to grab the S3 for this user. This is going to be our principal. This is the application that's accessing it. This is going to go right here. Boom. And then these are the assorted actions that we're going to get. These two are fine. It's gonna allow us to get the location of the data center that this bucket is held in, and then the objects. Objects are basically like whatever documents or things you're going to be putting in these S3 buckets. In our case, it's going to be pictures. And then we're also going to do put star, and that's going to allow us to do pretty much anything. And then the resource is going to be in this similar format where you have the bucket and then everything inside the bucket. So I'm going to just copy and paste this ARN right here. And everything up to there. So it should look like this. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and save those changes. And that was edited successfully. So again, you can see it's a very, very short statement right here. This policy is not very long at all. I'm going to go down a little bit further. And I'm going to edit the cores now. And I'm going to go ahead and grab from this example 2 right here, this JSON. Make sure that JSON is in orange, the Amazon orange, which I'm sure their marketing department would love me for saying that. Anyway, I'm going to delete all the stuff in these exposed headers. We don't need it. We're not going to bother with this. The max age in seconds is fine. The allowed origins is going to be star because all of you are using DHCP probably. So we don't want to restrict it to any particular IP address, although that would make this more secure. You can also do things like Googling the IP address range. It's a very special subnet for like the Department of Defense, and you can explicitly exclude them, for example, which would be fun. And then we're going to also subtract out this delete. We're not going to have any delete functionality within our application, but we are going to have a get. So that is going to be neat right there. So this is basically defining the security and the allowed IP addresses and functionality for our application right here. What methods are going to be allowed to be sent to this bucket and work. And we're going to save the changes here. And as you can see, I got this green little banner. So everything is in good shape right now. Now, the last thing I'm going to do before I close out this video is I'm going to show you guys why we did that thing with Composer in the last one. So you have Composer installed right here, and now we're going to actually use it. Now, what we're going to do is Composer. Hold on, I'm going to actually clear this out so it's a little bit higher up there. So can I increase the size? Yeah, okay, cool. That'll work. All right. Composer require AWS / AWS SDK PHP. I believe it's this. And this should install a bunch of the files and directories and everything, the resources that we need for AWS SDK into our directory over here. Oh. Hold on. I guess it didn't install properly. Let's do sudo apt install Composer. I did not realize that this was an additional package I could just get through the apt-get. So that's really convenient. Okay, great. And as you can see, it's populating all of the dependencies right here. All right, this vendor file has all of our resources for AWS in the source code right here. These are all of the different APIs that they have. As you can see, it's pretty extensive. We're going to be using S3 if I can ever find it. Yeah, S3 right here. Okay. And that's going to close out this video.